Hey guys, welcome back to Weekday. This is the space where we talk about life as it really is. The messy parts, the healing parts, the uncomfortable truths, and everything in between. I'm so glad that you're here. Today's episode is one I think almost everyone can relate to in some way, because if you've lived long enough, you've probably experienced this exact feeling. How someone who once knew everything about you can suddenly know nothing about you at all. How someone can go from being a daily part of your life to feeling like a complete stranger. Today we're talking about how fast people become strangers and what that really teaches us about attachment, relationships, grief, and even growth. So let's get into it. There is something deeply unsettling about losing connection with someone, am I right? Not necessarily because the relationship ended badly, not even because there was some huge betrayal. Sometimes relationships just shift. A friendship changes, a relationship ends, a family dynamic fractures, a coworker leaves, a person moves on. And suddenly, someone who once occupied so much space in your life doesn't anymore. At one point, you knew their coffee order, what mood they were in by how they texted. You knew what made them laugh. You knew their childhood stories, their insecurities, their dreams. And now, you don't even know what their life looks like. That's such a bizarre human experience, too. To go from intimacy to distance, from constant access to no access, from being included to being completely uninvolved. And I think what makes this so hard isn't always losing the person. Sometimes it's grieving the version of life where they existed. Most people don't become strangers overnight either. It just feels that way. Usually, distance happens slowly, in tiny ways. The texts get shorter, calls become less frequent, plans become harder to make, the energy shifts, the effort changes. And if you're intuitive, you feel it before it's ever spoken. You notice when someone is emotionally checking out, sometimes before they even realize it themselves. And that is the painful part. Watching someone become less available in real time. It's like grieving while the person is still technically there. That might honestly be harder than a clean ending, if I'm being honest, because your brain keeps saying, maybe things will go back. Maybe this is just temporary. Maybe I'm overthinking. Meanwhile, your heart already knows. I think this hurts so deeply because humans are wired for attachment. We get used to patterns. We build routines around people. We create emotional homes inside of our relationships. So when someone exits or emotionally relocates, it disrupts more than just the connection. It disrupts identity. Because now you have to figure out, who am I without this person in my daily life? Who am I without being their friend, their partner, their safe place, their person? And sometimes that's where the real grief is. Not just losing them, but meeting yourself again. You realize how much of your emotional real estate was occupied by someone else. This is probably the lesson nobody likes, but everybody learns eventually. Not everyone is meant to stay. Some people are seasonal. Some are transitional. Some are assignments. Some are mirrors, and some teach you exactly what you need to know and then leave. That doesn't mean the relationship wasn't real, and I think that's important. Just because something ended doesn't mean it was fake. A lot of us rewrite history after heartbreak. We tell ourselves, well, if they left, none of it mattered. And that's usually not true. Something can be real and still have an expiration date. That's one of those adulthood Buddhist lessons, am I right? One of the most painful forms of growth is allowing people to evolve beyond your access. And that means you may never know the next version of them. You may not get updates. You may not witness their growth. You may not be invited into their next chapter. And that can hurt. That can sting. Especially if you imagined yourself in that future. But healing sometimes looks like accepting. I knew a version of this person, and that version belonged to a specific chapter of my life. Not everyone is supposed to come with us forever. If you're currently grieving someone who feels like a stranger now, I want to remind you of this. Just because someone is no longer in your life doesn't mean they didn't matter. It doesn't erase the memories. It doesn't erase what you learned. It doesn't erase what was shared. But people change. Circumstances change. Access changes. And sometimes closure is simply accepting that. Not every relationship gets a perfect ending. Not every connection gets explanation. Sometimes all you get is distance. And maybe that's okay. Maybe becoming strangers isn't always a tragedy. Sometimes it's just evidence that life keeps moving, that chapters close, that we outgrow, evolve, detach, and then begin again. So if someone has been a stranger to you recently, honor what was, release what is, and make room for what's next. Thank you for hanging out with me today on Weekday. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And as always, take care of yourself, protect your peace, and I'll see you next episode. Until then, stay real, stay raw, stay curious.